There we go. All right, Michelle, you are the first square.
The first and only. No, not only.
Two other squares here, Michelle.
It's true. Ooh,
Not really squares.
that was a rough slip
yeah.
up. Yeah, I should have. Yikes. So I have been I don't even know. Words
the finance
are hard.
Granular. We did that.
Yes,
listing,
the
right?
income stuff. That's one of the main things. So we've been working on discussions about the income granularity. And there's some Quentin expressed I kind of wanted Quentin to be here for that conversation, but
yeah, we had some discussion of that, and it sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on, so we can table that for next time we're all in one spot,
or if Quentin gets back,
right, which we might all be in one spot here in a moment, but we could still table it until
cool.
we're all in one spot.
Yes. Bryce has been making great contributions to Ale Kiln, which is fun. Been researching, mostly like some research stuff, but I just can't remember what we've done. I think the income stuff will be the main thing. So let's move on.
All right, Caroline.
Well, I'm actually trying to work on the plain language for Quentin's up to code, but I'm also doing, I'm doing PRs. So and it's so intricate, because whether the tenant is the user or whether an advocate is helping. And then there's things that I spent the last hour trying to figure out. It's a great big long question. And I don't know whether, I just before we joined, I realized that the error was not that they're not all lined up correctly, all the indentations, but actually there's a radio button or checkbox, and I can't remember which, where you have choices, and then the choices are conditional, and they're quotes inside. So basically, you have your $, curly bracket, double quotes, whatever you want it to be for the label, and then the condition, and then the other thing, close curly bracket. But inside the condition, so I have a case that's already in, no, let's see, that's not the right one. I got a summons and complaint from my landlord. And so that would be in quotes, but then summons and complaint is also in quotes, and that's what screwed everything up. So I need single and double, and I don't know if there's a way to.
Yeah, there's a way to escape quotes.
Well, I don't know whether we want to escape. I don't know, and that's what I'm saying is whether we want to talk about down the line escaping quotes, or whether we want some kind of a pattern where sometimes like a guide for when you use single quotes and when you use double quotes. We could probably do double quotes on the outside and single quotes on the inside, but I guess that if you did that, then your user would see summons and complaint would be in a single quote instead of a double quote. So I guess that's the guide, what you want your user to.
Then you got to worry about possessive
apostrophes.
Words. Yeah.
Right. Well, right. If you use single quotes apostrophe, then the apostrophe is going to act closing of So do we have any kind of guideline about that, or go back to this escaping the quotes?
So here's it's all just choice, but if you wanted to look for a style guide, we use this Python formatter called Black for our Python code, and it always uses double quotes for the outermost quotes.
Okay.
But if you need to use double quotes inside and there's no apostrophes inside the text, you can use single quotes on the outside, right, and double quotes inside. But default to using double quotes as your outside quotes.
Uh-huh.
And then in between there, you do have to escape. I don't think there's any way
Yeah,
around that.
sometimes.
You just use a backslash for escaping the
I was
character.
gonna ask you backslash is how you escape. Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what I would say is the guide, just so you don't have to make choices. That's why we use an automatic formatter, so we don't have to make choices all the time with those things.
Yeah,
Have
and
to
also
reinvent.
it's consistent, right? That's the thing. So,
It doesn't end up mattering really, except it's nice when things look the same, but it's not too important really.
Well, the formatter also wouldn't that help you keep things lined up as well? My eyes are just so bad.
It can definitely help you avoid errors. Yeah, that's true. If you don't always have your code formatted the same way, you're guessing, and then you might make a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I like about VS Code is it has those little dotted vertical, so you can see if it's lined up. Whereas if I'm looking, using the little code window in DocAssembly, that makes me crazy. I just can't
Yeah.
see if they're lined up.
Yeah, and then if you have like something like 3 single quotes, then it's like, is that a double quote? Where is the double quote?
Which one is a double quote?
Which one's a double quote? Or none of them are in this case. But there's no way it looks the
So
same.
I mean, Michelle, you typically like to use double quotes, don't you? That's what you use most of the time, not single quotes.
Only in places that don't have good syntax highlighting. I prefer single quotes where I can in places that show strings in different colors.
Oh.
Because then it's just less messy.
It does get replaced if you upload it in a Python module, though.
Yeah, which is fine because I mostly use the like DocAssembly editor, which I prefer to have like things more, even if they're chunkier, a bit messier. I tend to use double quotes there because it's more consistent. Because Python isn't always, and code isn't always colored in the code mirror editor. I wanted to say real quick, if you use the Alt, right, and drag.
Alt, right, and drag?
Alt and drag.
Oh,
I just said,
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about, right? That can help you track what line it's on, not easily, not like VS Code, but instead of just trying to follow it.
That's what I was doing. But see, I thought that's what my problem was. So it was like, this question's like 100 lines long, and I'm messing around with all these blanket indents, and it turns out it was a quote thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's my big thrill. And I've also, one thing is, so Michelle's been helping for work. Michelle's been helping me do the logic for this whole thing. If you're going to do 2 orders and they have different deadlines, just the sort of getting things in getting the steps to be in the right order and stuff like that. I just was a bit cross-eyed. And then Jeannie came back and told me actually the logistic answer to one of the situations is easy. for once it's not more complicated. The actual process is much easier. So you have a 30-day deadline. If you want to file an appeal that typically has a 15-day deadline, and you also want to appeal another order that has a 30-day deadline, they both get a 30-day deadline. I discovered that yesterday, so I was thrilled to bits. And the final thing is that Melissa Bento is the person who is going to be starting to do the DocAssembly form development with me. And she's been doing forms for the court for 15 years, but she's been doing fillable PDFs, and she just started, I think last year she started doing Documate or Gavel or something. And so I've got her, she does like it, but I've got her hooked on DocAssembly now. And I met with her the Monday before I took off for New Hampshire, and she's really enthusiastic. And I was a little worried because I thought she's going to be.
Yeah, it can go either way.
Yeah. And so she's, and she thinks laterally, and she's but she also has a design perspective. And so
that's great.
like I have a plain language perspective, and I feel like sometimes I can't get past a question if I can't edit the plain language, because it just doesn't, the logic doesn't work for me, and that's how she is with design. So she just can't go to the next question if she doesn't like the way it looks. So I thought that's great, because she can, connect with you, Michelle, and you can help her sort some of this stuff out. So anyway, so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. It's not kind of exciting. It's very exciting.
No, it's always nice to have another member of the community.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And she's a morning person too, which is also really nice.
I don't know. You're really, really a morning person.
It's true.
You're a
Well,
very
that's why
early
I'm
morning
a sleep person.
You're early enough morning person that you overlap with the very late nighttime people.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So that's me anyway. Yeah.
All right, cool. Quentin.
I can't think of what I was doing besides like recovering from COVID brain fog.
That is
You
enough.
had COVID too, Quentin?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I still feel like I'm recovering. So
I had it a week after David, and even though we did not see each other during that time, it was not related. We're just part of the same wave of folks who've never
I don't know. We've been on a lot of Zoom meetings.
It's true.
Maybe it's mutated.
Like
No one else in my house got it, which is lucky.
That is very nice.
Nobody else in your family got it?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
that's
very, very nice.
Paid off having to, it's really sucky to be like isolating, but
Hey, but it paid off. That's good stuff.
Yes.
That's good stuff, because the disruption that comes with the whole family is just, yeah.
Mhm.
But I did work on some smaller pull requests and reviewing and some small changes. It was like one long-term thing was like getting the ability to install fonts on the server more easily if people have custom fonts in their files, which they tend to. So that's a new feature in the dashboard.
When you say files, you mean their docx or the PDF files?
For docx file,
Oh.
yeah. If you want the PDF you generate from a docx to accurately represent the fonts, you have to install the font on the server.
Oh.
It replaces it with like
Uh-huh.
not even a lookalike font because it's not that smart, but it will choose a font that is on the server and replace that when it makes the PDF. So this lets you upload the font to the server.
Oh, that's cool.
There was a way to do it, but it was very complicated and annoying way. So now it's just a button on the dashboard.
Buttons. I like buttons.
So does Ivy.
We had tabled part of a discussion earlier from Michelle had wanted to talk maybe a little bit about fee stuff, the money stuff.
I actually remembered a few different things that I forgot I wanted to
Oh, okay.
Well, so Quentin, if there's nothing else, we can loop it back around.
We can go
So
to
that's what I'm
that
saying.
conversation. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. One quick question, I think will be quick for Quinn. Can I revert that documentation merge?
Oh, you didn't want me to merge it. I'm sorry.
It had unresolved comments. I was leaving it to Bryce to like decide whether he wanted to commit those. So,
Okay.
and I don't think there was a commit. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not disrupting anything else.
No,
Cool.
I was just looking through, making sure I didn't look carefully enough at which pull request I was merging. I saw it was approved, and so I figured. It was already
Okay.
merged. But
I
yeah,
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the comments are there. If Bryce doesn't want to implement them, that's great. But he usually leaves a comment that says, you know, I'm just going to merge, or he merges, in which case I know that he's had a chance to look at them.
I will say we have to be a little more careful with this time for pull
Yeah.
requests.
Definitely,
just one
but he and I have conversations about this.
Yeah.
We communicate very well, so it should be good. Like I said, he can just merge it. He doesn't have to look at them. I say that in the review, and I say that to him. Okay, so income the main thing was income granularity. I remember you being reluctant about the granularity of months. And so I hesitated
No,
to
no, no.
say
It was about having the granularity. But I think once you have it, it should match up with whatever information the person has, though, right? But I could be
Okay,
wrong. Maybe I'm
sure.
missing something. If you ask people to say what was your income month by month, how do you think people get that information right now?
So some people do have month by month information, and that was one segment that we had talked about. And doing math for like a month is less than doing math for a year. So but if you're fine with going to a more flexible level of granularity, then I think we can work on a slightly different model and work on different user stories that we might discuss with the group if they have time. I just thought that like month was the limit we could hit. So,
I feel like it just won't help many people to have it to the month, because that's not how most people get paid.
Okay.
So if the idea is to let them have our computer do the math for them, I'm not sure how many people will be helped by saying now enter it month by month.
So we
Sure.
were,
I thought the problem was that month by month was too granular. And so
It is more work
but-
than just letting people say their overall income.
it's more work depending on what they find challenging. Right.
Partly has to do with
So-
like how accurate people have to be when they report this, right? Like if you can say, if you can provide like just a general estimate of your income, that's not a skill everyone has, I guess, to be able to estimate.
No.
so
No,
one
it's not.
of the things we were thinking about is with, what's bringing all this up is people who, we started with the seasonal workers. So Jack was really helpful because they come from a fisherman. I think they're all fishing people in Jack's family. And so sometimes you get paid at the end of you get paid one lump sum at the end of the season. And so you could say, I got this much in this. It's not what you get. It's not that you get paid month. In that particular scenario, you don't get paid every month, but how much did you get paid in this month? And how much did you get paid in that month? Because if you get these lump sums, and it's for you may have worked 3 or 4 months, but you only got paid one time. So that was one thing that we were thinking of. And so we were talking, Michelle and I were talking about trying to imagine other kinds of jobs where there'd be some way of getting paid that we hadn't actually thought about in the way people think about it. So
Yeah.
that's where we were going with that. Because we think, then there's, and also think people like waitresses might get paid a lot more, might earn a lot more in, Christmas week, than, some, how you have these surges of income. So we were just sort of trying to figure out some of this. Because you don't want to ask people 5 million questions either, that's the
Right.
Unless they want 5 million questions.
Yeah. But you don't want to force people to have to do all that.
Yes,
I
exactly.
think that's
So-
important, right? To like
so
let
the-
developers choose if they
I
want
think
detailed experience as an option or not. Because
And
may
you
just
got
wanna
that
hear
in
about money.
your I was just looking at one of your interviews. You have that. Do you want us to help? Is it in the up to code? Do you have income in up to code? You don't do it. You do?
Maybe it's the damages calculation in up to code. There's one like that.
I thought there was one that you say, do you want to do this yourself or do you want us to help you?
Yeah, for the
Oh.
93A demand letter and up to
Oh.
code. It's calculating damages request.
Oh, yeah, okay.
yes.
I haven't tested that yet to see if people like that or not, actually.
I thought you did
So
that,
if
and you had tested it. All right.
I've
so you
done some user testing for lots of parts of the interview, but I don't remember if we've tested that screen.
All right.
So if a varied level of granularity is acceptable, I think that really opens up the conversation and will let authors decide the level of granularity in a
Mhm.
much more useful way.
I think you should,
So,
like you said, come up with some user stories there, right? So like
yes. Yep,
who is trying to represent their income?
we've
could they
started
use the
listing
system?
those, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you probably already thinking of things like teachers and folks who are on like 9-month contracts. And then the other option would be people who have a different job, like a seasonal job, like a
Yeah.
summer tourist job. That's pretty common too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remind me to tell you a story later about the monthly income thing, but yes, so that will be kind of, I think we're gonna have to
It might even be like
rediscuss a
giving
few
people some
things.
patterns. If you do want to decide, if you feel like you really are giving good service to the litigant, or I guess they don't have to be litigant, whatever, the user of the interview, by letting them be that detailed, because it will then be received in the same spirit on the other side. That's the point, right? If someone's going to spend 2 hours at describing their income, you want to make sure that they actually need that level of information.
Is it
to receive
possible
the
to,
document.
well, one of the challenges that I've kind of wrestled with is it has seemed at some points not possible to say something like give a general estimate, because courts wouldn't like that or something. Maybe I'm misremembering.
It totally depends on the form. So
yeah,
like
I think if the author can say, what I'm saying is, if the author can say give a general estimate, that's fine. But if the author can't say that, I personally, as a litigant, as a user, would become anxious about how accurate I needed to be, and become anxious about my level of understanding of the information I needed to give. So if there weren't a way to give detailed information, I would sit down, I would do all the math, or maybe I wouldn't fill it out at all, because the uncertainty of how much it mattered, how accurate what I put in was. So
I think something, I guess, is like a lot of people who I've worked with have simple income situations, which isn't true for everybody, right? But
yeah.
they have like, they collect SSI, that's
Yeah.
one thing to put down, and it's the same every month.
Mhm.
That's my biggest experience with folks who would qualify for a fee waiver. And they also can just check off the box. They don't have to say their income in Massachusetts. But of course, there's more people who use it that I just don't run into. But
Mhm.
I don't know, is that helpful to give someone that solve for their comfort if we're saying you're modeling your information?
Well, if you
to the
give them the
molecule?
option to give an estimate or to just give a lump sum, then I think so. You can say, do
Options
you want
aren't
us to give?
always good. I don't know if that's true. If
Okay.
you
Yeah,
can
I
tell
mean,
someone
that
to
is-
give them 3 hours work or 5
Fair
minutes.
enough.
But aren't we, but also but Michelle's talking about not arguing for users having that, but arguing for allowing developers to put that in if developers want to put it in, right? It's
For
a
sure.
different- Right?
Yeah.
And so, because, from talking here, with one of the family plan coordinators or whatever they're, parenting plan coordinator, he says that people are constantly telling him what they make. It like giving a general, oh, I make $100,000 a year, and they're teachers, and he knows they don't make $100,000 a year. And so then he says, okay, let's pull out your pay stubs, because people, when they estimate, but
Yeah.
Michelle, you're saying give the ability to ask general or specific to developers, and the developers can decide what they want to do based on what the court form is, right?
I think that's
Yeah.
fair. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would think about like, if you're giving people that flexibility, how can you lower the burden on the litigant? It's hard to see if you see a choice that says
Yeah.
more
Put
accurate or
one
less
number in.
accurate, to never just choose the more accurate one.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
gonna feel like you're making a terrible mistake by not doing that. But if you do give them that choice, what are the actual things they are going to want to model, and how can you make it easy for them? So if like there's a few patterns, like I get paid in a 9-month contract,
Mhm.
and I don't earn this time, or I have a second job that time, right? Then you're only modeling 2 things. You're modeling your one job that you get for 9 months of the year, and your other job that you get for 3 months of the year.
Mhm.
That's not, you don't have to say, this is my income month by month by month by month, or pay period by pay period. But if someone has just like really, like if they're someone like me and they have a consulting job and they have to say their monthly income for some reason, then maybe you just want to, why wouldn't, I mean, I'm just feeling like in some of these situations where you can say, this is what I earned last year, they ask for a tax return.
Mhm.
And they may ask what you earn this month and then explain why is the income different, right? Like it feels really unfair to make someone have that much information about their income that they provide for almost every situation I can think of. But if we're going to let people do it, let's at least think about how to simplify the most realistic scenarios that people have
Right.
and make them give as little information as they can. Because if your income's the same every month, but 3, that's not the same as saying, tell me your income month by month. Like that's not a helpful thing for someone to do at that point. You can maybe say, enter a representative pay stub from your 9-month job and then your 3-month job. Maybe people can already do that with our system. Is that also, that's also something to think through. Are these things people can do just by saying they have multiple jobs, even if they have the same employer?
Mhm. Oh, multiple jobs with the same employer? You mean like,
That's maybe not quite right. That's not what it would happen for the Fisher person or the teacher. That would be 2 different jobs.
yeah, I can't, I mean, the only way I can think you do that is that, and I mean, then you get into the confusion of independent contractor versus I have, if I owe, I mean, this is the bigger employment rights question in Massachusetts, at least, is that employers are treating people who should be employees as independent contractors. Because that takes a lot of burden. So people don't know that they're, I mean, that's a big legal teaching civil right issue, whether you're an independent contractor or an employee, and whether you should be. So that's a different, I mean, that, but we'll overlap with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is making me think. Have you already tried thinking through, like, part of it, what it seems to me is trying to model people's income that varies from month to month because it's one job and their income goes up and down.
Right.
That can happen.
Yeah.
But isn't the most common, all the things that I think we've actually said as real user stories are, I have a job for this part of the year and I don't have a job, or I have a different job for a different part of the year. So is it more just about letting people say, my job starts this month and ends this month? Or are you just more asking for like the time bounds for their jobs?
Well, that's what we're talking about, how to do that. Because again, it comes down to how do people get paid? Right. I mean, there's the time thing, but there's also how do they think about it? Do they think I have a contract for 9 months, or do they think I get paid regularly for 9 months? Those are 2 different kinds of jobs.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't know. I feel like the court usually what they want to know is they want to know what is your annual salary, because they want to compare it against the federal poverty guidelines. And when I've seen, at least in the Massachusetts courts, the probation officers talk to people about what they make, they'll start off and they'll be like, do you know what that is? And they'll start with that. But if they don't, they'll say, well, do you work seasonally? And then they'll sort of work in from there. Yeah.
And then what do they usually do, David? Are they're trying to figure out their 2 jobs, basically?
Well, they're trying to figure out, whether or not, like, basically, like, if they can extrapolate what you've just made into a year long. So, like, they're trying to say, like, if you know it, great, you know it. If you don't know it, then the first thing they want to know is, like, are you employed seasonally, or do you have rate? Basically, I think they're trying to figure out, like, can I look at last month's and multiply times 12 is what they want to know.
Yeah.
And so the first bite at that is, full-time or seasonal or, hourly. Because there are a lot of,
do you know people we can, because whoever it is that you're describing that you found this stuff out from, it would be great to talk to them and understand
I
their
don't know, I feel-
process, you know?
I feel like I don't know. Part of this conversation makes me feel like we're like over engineering it just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like I think you could always go to like a super granularity.
Mhm.
But to understand, it just would be useful to understand the questions that when people try and find out this information, what questions do they ask?
Well,
I think
this is
that's a
where
level of granularity we have to get into, not necessarily the user.
this is
but
another. I have thoughts that I don't want to share
Okay.
right now. We
Okay,
can share later.
all right.
Or whether
Are we
that-
done with
Um,
recording? Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Almost,
Can I just, you have more, Michelle?
just a couple things. I wanted to say that Bryce is working on PDF comparison and is
Okay.
almost done with PDF comparison in its MVP form for Ale Kiln. So I wish you were here. I
does
feel
that
like he deserves so much credit. Huh?
Yes. Well, we can give him credit asynchronously and here on the video.
Yes.
Does that mean that you can replace the one PDF with the other and keep the same fields? Is that what's a PDF comparison?
So you
No, it's
compare
for the
to
test for Kiln. she's talking
for
about.
Kiln.
Mm-hmm.
So for Kiln, you would be able to have a PDF in your sources folder, and you would be able to compare that against the result from the test.
Oh, wow, that's just what I want, right?
Yes, that's what I
Make
was
sure it's
trying to
filled out
say.
correctly.
Exactly.
Is it, even if it's a really long PDF, even if it's like
Ye-
12 pages?
Yes, though we would need to change a little bit about, yes, basically, yes. You'd have to set the timeout to something longer, so you'd want to probably do it as a separate step, et cetera, et cetera. But yes.
That's amazing.
So, and then we have conversations about how to make Ale Kiln usable kind of more broadly, but I don't think that's a discussion for now, but that's something I would be very interested in discussing more with the nuances that with some of the new, anyway. All right, some of the discussions I think would be worth having. So yes, that's it. Now we can stop
Okay.
the thing.